So in this video we're gonna create a brick field, and this is how our final product is gonna look like. So if I refresh it, you see I can play the game here right now, as long as I'm not losing. Okay, I'm gonna lose on purpose right now. Okay, so this is the bricks that we're gonna be adding to our code. Game development, build the brick field. And in the previous video, this is pretty much the whole game that we created. So right now it's game over, so let's play a little bit. So as you can see, as long as the ball doesn't touch in the bottom, so we are still on the game, but as long as I let it touch the floor, it's game over. So right now this is the 6 out of the 10 game dev canvas tutorial. You can find the source code as it will look after completing this lesson, so you can check out this link is gonna get you to the GitHub repository. This is the lesson 6. Okay, after modifying the gameplay mechanics, we are now able to lose. This is great, as it means the game is finally feeling more like a game. However, it will quickly get boring if all you do is bounce the ball off the walls and the bottom. What a breakout game really needs some bricks to destroy with the ball, and this is what we'll create now. So setting up the brick variables. The overall aim of this lesson is to render a few lines of code for the bricks using a nested loop that works through a two-dimensional array first. However, we need to set up some variables to define information about the bricks, such as their width and height, rows and columns, etc. Add the following lines to your code below the variables which you have previously declared in your program. So we are gonna go into our folder that we're already working in. I'm gonna go into my main.js file, and pretty much here is our variables. So from lines 1 to 17. So now I'm gonna start adding some more variables. We're gonna have some 3, 6, 7 constant declarations. So we're gonna start, so it's gonna be the constant declaration name brick row count. So it's gonna be like this: brick row count, and this is camel notation, remember. So we're gonna set it to 3. Now we're gonna have the constant declaration name brick column. So it's gonna be brick column count, and again we are gonna set it to the number 3, and then with a semicolon. Oh, it has to be number 5. We're setting it to 5. Okay, so let me see, brick row count, then we have brick column. It has to be camel notation. Okay, so column, and then we're gonna have the constant declaration brick width. So we're gonna have the constant declaration, and it's gonna be brick width, like that, and we are gonna set it to 75, semicolon at the end, and we're gonna continue. So now we're gonna have the constant declaration, and it's gonna be brick height, like this, and again we are gonna set it to 20, semicolon at the end, brick width, brick height, brick padding. So constant declaration, then it's gonna be brick padding, and we are gonna set it to 10, semicolon at the end. Then we're gonna have the constant declaration name brick offset tab. So it's gonna be brick offset tab, like that, and let me see, brick offset tab, again we're gonna set it to 30, and finally the brick offset left. Okay, so constant declaration, and then it's gonna be the brick offset, and it's gonna be left, and we are gonna set it to, again it's gonna be, the value is gonna be 30. So we have these variables that we just added. Okay, that's fine. Here we've defined the number of rows and columns of bricks, their width and height, the padding between the bricks so they won't touch each other, and a tab and left offset so they won't start being drawn right from the edge of the canvas. We will hold all the bricks in a two-dimensional array. It will contain the bricks columns, so which in turn will contain the brick rows, R, which in turn will each contain an object containing the X and Y position to point each brick on the screen. Add the following just below your variables. So we're gonna have this constant declaration name bricks, and we're gonna set it to an array, an empty array. So we're gonna put it here. So it's gonna be constant declaration name bricks, and we're gonna set it to an empty array or empty brackets, semicolon at the end. Let me see, bricks. Okay, and below that we're gonna have a for loop. Okay, so we're gonna have the for statement declaration for. We're gonna open parentheses, and we're gonna have some statements here. So we're gonna let 0. So for let me see. Okay, so let C, we are initialize it to 0. Okay, let C initialize to 0 as long as C is less than bricks. It has to be brick column count. Okay, it's gonna be brick column count. Okay, we're gonna initialize C to 0 as long as C is less than brick column count. Okay, so we're gonna increment C by 1. So we type in C++. C++. Okay, and okay, so we're gonna have the bricks. We're gonna have the bricks, and in this array we're gonna pass in pretty much C, and we are gonna set it to the empty set of array like that, semicolon at the end. And again, nothing has changed yet. So we have that for the for statement, and then we're gonna have another for statement inside of this for statement. So we're gonna go below the bricks, and we're gonna have 4. We're gonna have another 4. So we're gonna have the let statement declaration. So we're gonna let R, we're gonna initialize it to 0 as long as R is less than the brick column count, as long as R is less than the brick row count. So has to be a row count, as long as R, okay, we are initializing R to 0, but as long as R is less than the brick row count, we're gonna increment R by 1. So we're gonna have that, and we are gonna have in the bricks, and we're gonna pass in the variables. We're gonna pass in Z as well as we're gonna pass in R like this, and we're gonna set it to this object with key value pairs. X is gonna be having a value of 0, and Y is gonna have a value of 0 as well, and semicolon at the end. Okay, so we can close that, and this is what we have up to this point. Nothing is changing, so you can still play this game. Okay, so the code above will loop through the rows and columns and create new bricks. Note that the brick objects will also be used for collision detection purposes later. Okay, brick drawing logic. Now let's create a function to loop through all the bricks in the array and draw them on the screen. Our code might look like this. Okay, so let me see, brick drawing. Let's create a function to loop through all the bricks in the array and draw them on the screen. Our code might look like this. So pretty much we have, as you can see, we have 1, 2, and 3 functions, 4, 5 functions up to this point. So we're gonna add a new function, but first let's study this function. We're gonna name it draw bricks. We're gonna use the for statement declaration. We're gonna initialize C to 0 as long as C is less than the brick count, and then we're gonna increment C by 1. We're also gonna have the R be set to 0. We're gonna, as long as R is less than the brick row count, we're gonna increment R by 1, and then we're gonna have in the bricks, and we're gonna pass in the array C and R, the variable C and R, and then we're gonna use the method that X, we're gonna set it to 0, and then we're gonna have bricks bracket C brackets R that Y, and we're gonna set it to 0. We're gonna have the ctx begin, and then the ctx that close path. Okay, again, let me see, again, we are looping through the rows and columns to set the X and Y positions for each brick, and we're also painting a brick on the canvas. Size, brick width, X, brick height, each loop iteration. The problem is that we're painting them all in one place at the coordinate 0, 0. What we need to do is include some calculations that will work out the X and Y positions on each brick for each loop iteration. So here pretty much they're given as this example here, so we're not gonna write it in, but here we have this constant declaration brick X, uppercase letter X, and we're setting it to C multiplied by the sum of the brick width and the brick padding. Outside of the parentheses we are adding the brick offset left. Okay, then to the next line we have the constant declaration brick width, and we're setting it to R multiplied by the sum of the brick height and the brick padding. Outside of the parentheses we're adding the brick offset tab. Okay, so we're having that up to this point. Let me see. Okay, so each brick position is worked out as brick width plus brick padding multiplied by the column number C plus the brick offset left. The logic for the brick Y is identical, except for it uses a value for row number R, brick height, and brick offset tab. Now every single brick can be placed in its correct place, row and column, with padding between each brick. Draw an offset from the left and tab canvas edges. So the final version of the draw bricks function, after assigning the brick X and brick Y values at the coordinates instead of 0, 0 each time, will look like this. Add this into your code below the draw paddle function. So we're gonna go into the draw paddle function. Let me see, draw paddle function, draw paddle. So this one we're gonna go right here. Okay, and a good example would be pretty much just start typing this whole thing and then modifying it with haste. Here, let me see the version. So we're gonna have this function named draw bricks, and this one it was draw bricks, so it's pretty much the same thing. Let me see. Okay, so yeah, you can, if you want, you could start typing all this code and then modifying it with this, as you can see how it will be working. But if you want to jump straight and just type it in, so we could go in function and we could name it draw bricks, like that, draw bricks. Okay, so we have this function and we're gonna open curly braces. Okay, so we have this function named draw bricks, and we're gonna use the for statement declaration. So it's gonna be for, we're gonna open parentheses, we're gonna have this, we're gonna let the variable C, we're gonna initialize it to 0, and as long as C is less than the brick column count, so less than the brick column count, okay, we are gonna increment it by 1. Okay, semicolon, and then we're gonna increment it by 1. Okay, so we have that. Let me see. Okay, for so we are using the for loop for C is when C is initialized to 0. As long as C is less than the brick column count, we're gonna increment C by 1. Okay, and then for, we're gonna use another for loop, and we're gonna have this variable R this time. So as long as R is less than 0, we are gonna let R set to 0, and as long as R is less than the brick row count, we are gonna increment R by 1. So for let, okay, we're gonna let R be set to 0 as long as R is less than the brick row count, and we're gonna increment R by 1. Okay, that's fine. We're gonna open curly braces, and now we're gonna have a constant declaration named brick X. So it's gonna be brick uppercase letter X, and we're gonna set it to a multiplication, so it's gonna be this variable that we just created, c, and we're gonna multiply it by a parenthesis, and inside of the parentheses is gonna be a sum. So we're gonna have the sum of the brick column, not the brick width. It's gonna be the brick width and the brick padding. So it's gonna be the brick padding. Okay, so we're multiplying that, and we're gonna add to that multiplication the brick offset left. Let me see. Okay, and then we can end it with a semicolon. Okay, brick x. So let me see, brick x. So we have c multiplied by the brick width plus the brick padding and then the brick offset left. Okay, that's fine. Now we're gonna have pretty much, it's gonna be similar, but we're gonna have this constant declaration in brick uppercase letter y, and we're gonna set it to this equation. So we have that CSV, let me see, it's gonna be r, so it's gonna be the second let statement declaration. So this time it's gonna be r multiplied by the sum of the brick height, and the brick height and the brick padding. So we are brick padding, okay, like that. Okay, and we're gonna add to that multiplication the brick offset. It's not gonna be left, it's gonna be tab. So it's gonna be the brick offset tab, like that, semicolon at the end. We can save it, and again, nothing's changing yet, so everything is the same. Okay, but let's keep moving. Okay, so we are here, and okay, so we are gonna have here, we are gonna have the bricks. So the bricks, okay, it's gonna be bricks, and then we're gonna open inside the parentheses, we're gonna pass in the variables. It's gonna be cr, yeah, it's gonna be c, and then we're gonna open brackets again, it's gonna be r, and it's gonna be that x. Let me see, yeah, that x, and we're gonna set it to bricks, or just brick uppercase letter x, like that, semicolon at the end. And then we're gonna do the same thing. It's gonna be bricks, we're gonna pass in c, and also we're gonna pass in the variable r, that y, and we are gonna set it to this variable brick uppercase letter y, semicolon at the end. Okay, so everything is fine up to this point. Brick cr, that y, brick y. Okay, and then we're just gonna have the ctx begin path, and then we're gonna end it with the ctx that close path. So let's do that. So it's gonna be ctx, and it's gonna be begin path. Okay, we're gonna open parentheses, semicolon at the end, and we can type in ctx that close path. Okay, like this. Let me see, close path and begin path. Okay, that's fine. And now we're gonna have inside of that, we're gonna have the ctx, and we're gonna use some methods. So we're gonna have the rectangle, okay, and we're gonna pass in some parameters. So it's gonna be the brick uppercase letter x, as well as the brick, let me see, uppercase letter y that we have here. The third parameter is gonna be the brick width. It's gonna be the brick width, and finally we're gonna have in the brick height. So we have that brick x, brick y, brick width, and brick height. Okay, so we can save it up to this point. We're gonna have the ctx that fill style, and we're gonna set it to, let me see, you can pick whatever color you want. So I have the hex color here, so let's, I don't know, maybe let's go for kind of like a yellow maybe. Okay, let's pick this color. So it's gonna be number sign, it's gonna be a, and it's gonna be 89D. So 89D32, let me see, 89D32. okay, that's fine, semicolon at the end. And finally the ctx that fill, okay, semicolon at the end. let me see, semicolon at the end, fill, that's fine. Okay, we have the CTX fill style, we are setting it to that, and we're passing the brick X, brick Y. Okay, everything is fine up to this point. Okay, now actually drawing the bricks. The last thing to do in this lesson is to add a call to draw bricks somewhere in the draw function. So we have already created this function named draw bricks, but now we have to start adding some code inside of the draw function, inside of this function, because here when we have the constant interval, we are set the interval and we are calling this function draw. So now we're gonna start typing something here in the draw function. Okay, so preferably at the beginning, between the clearing of the canvas and drawing the ball. Okay, so preferring clearing the ball. Okay, so let me see, preferably at the beginning, between the clearing of the canvas. Okay, so the clearing of the canvas and drawing the ball. So we're gonna start typing right here, so let's start typing it right here. Okay, and let me see, we're just pretty much call it draw bricks, so it's gonna be like that, draw bricks. And again, when you call it, you have to put in the parentheses, semicolon at the end. And now, as you can see, okay, let's refresh it. So we have that. Oops, game over. Now you can play around. So oops, again, I'm losing again. You can play around here, so you can still, as long as the ball doesn't hit the bottom, you're not losing. So I'm gonna lose on purpose. Okay, that's fine. As you can see, this is the color that we just added, so this is our bricks that we have put it here, and you can modify the color, the size, whatever. Okay, so compare your code. At this point has got a little more interesting again. So this is the code that we have here in the JavaScript, but you also can check it out in the GitHub repository. So now try changing the number of bricks in a row or the column or the next positions. And yeah, this is pretty much what we have for the build the brick field, and pretty much this is our final result.